Namaste everyone, I am Deepti Chavan, an MDR TB survivor, patient advocate and a fellow with Survivors Against TB. I was diagnosed with TB at 16 and my recovery came with its own set of challenges and complications. Misdiagnosis, prolonged treatment and losing a lung. But a challenge nothing and no one could have prepared me for was the stigma that came with this disease. I remember my relatives asking my parents about who would marry me rather than being happy that I was alive. I saw my social circle dwindle. Many would just call me, अरे वो टीबी की मरीज, अरे वो जिसको टीबी हुआ था. The myths and misconceptions around TB are many, and they are hard to shake off, especially when we are told to shush about our diagnosis. As women, the burden of carrying that silence is even harsher. A lot of women have told me in the past couple of years that they have to hide the fact that they are taking their treatment. They'll take all the medicines at night when everyone else is sleeping. The husband wants divorce, they are thrown out of their houses, and they are kept away from their children. And these aren't the only instances. Marginalized communities face even greater stigma when it comes to TB. Stigma can be almost as harmful as TB itself, and that is why we must talk about it. Let's listen to the other panelists as we attempt to #break the silence.
Hello everyone, I'm Debshree Lokhande, an ex-DRTB survivor, architect and fellow with Survivors Against TB India. I fought my battle with TB for close to 7 years, and while I'm grateful that I won it, there were so many aspects of my care that would have made this less excruciating. The COVID-19 pandemic and how it has impacted TB care in India has only further highlighted the fact that there remain many gaps in the system, and I'd like to highlight a few. Stigma and social isolation. Because there isn't enough information about TB and it continues to be discussed only in hushed tones, the stigma around the disease only increases. This often leads to social isolation, making a patient's journey far tougher. Often, even health systems and service providers contribute to and perpetuate the stigma. And a lot of our work at SATB focuses on stigma mitigation for this very reason. Lack of access to mental health support. There is another layer of stigma attached to discussing mental health, and as we know, TB treatment can often cause or aggravate mental health conditions. Access to therapy, counseling, or even peer supporters remains low, and the costs attached are extremely high. We have therefore continuously advocated for mental health support to be included as a part of TB care. Lack of gender responsive care. The social costs of battling TB are high, but higher still if you're a woman, trans, or gender non binary person. There remains a gap in how the health systems perceive the needs of the gender minorities and also how society responds to them. A common reaction being blaming them for their condition. The bacteria may not discriminate, but our gender unresponsive care does. In conclusion, I would like to highlight that there is a larger issue of the lack of high quality of care for TB, and that there is little investment in making the patient experience easier by putting them at the center of the care they receive.
My name is Priya Dutt. I'm a politician, a social activist, and also a TB survivor. I'm delighted to be on this platform and the launch of this campaign, TB and Stigma. Today I speak to you both as a political leader, a social activist, but most of all, a TB survivor. I fought and defeated TB over a year, and it taught me a lot about the disease, a lot I didn't know. TB is always accompanied by stigma, some through the health system, some by the people around us, and also we ourselves. We associate TB with stigma, or we think only the poorest of the poor will get TB. Well, anyone can get TB. So why stigmatize? Why create the stigma around it? Many times, people suffering from TB can't even speak about it. And that creates the deafening silence. Therefore, this campaign is so important, which is named Break the Silence. #Break the Silence. We need to talk about the disease and we need to understand the disease. When I had TB, I really didn't know anything about the disease except there are certain very poor areas which there is a huge density of population where there is TB. We used to have TB camps there to look at patients, to try and understand more about the disease. But when it happened to me, I was taken aback till I started understanding what the disease is. Secondly, many of us think TB is contagious, but not all kinds of TB is contagious. I had TB of the heart, which is not contagious, and yes, but my first question to my doctor was, I have TB, will my children be safe? And I think that is the thought of every mother, and especially women who really have to face so much discrimination anyways, have to go through this, so it becomes self-blame. Well, it's no one's fault. I think the pandemic has really taught us this, that as disease is something which you don't ask for, nor does it affect only certain kinds of people. It can happen to anyone. Therefore, understanding the disease is very, very important. Most of us who were affected by TB are never able to talk about it. And I think that has to be broken.
Hi, I'm Sandhya Krishnan and I'm a TB survivor. The stigma from TB affects every survivor. Some more, others less. I was no different. Yet a community of survivors like me helped me to overcome it. So today, at the launch of this campaign, I want to talk to you about how we address TB-related stigma. People often tell me, I don't want to stigmatize, I just want to protect myself. I understand that, but in the process, we often push the person suffering into a shell. They don't seek care, they blame themselves, some even give up. How do we stop this? One thing is clear, if we don't address stigma, TB will continue to spread and happen to many of us. But how do we start? First, at the individual level, we need to educate ourselves about TB. Did you notice how quickly we all learnt about COVID-19? We can learn about TB too. Not all TB is contagious. Even when it is, there is nothing wrong with infection control measures like wearing masks for personal safety. You know what is wrong? When you start discriminating against a person who has TB. Discrimination is not going to stop the disease. It does not help you or the TB-affected individual. So let us learn the difference between stigma and safety. Second, if you know someone with TB, understand the disease and their circumstances. In my view, all families and treatment and support givers need to be counseled by health providers on how to take adequate precautions and provide support without stigmatizing the TB-affected individual. Often, the worst stigma is seen in healthcare settings. This is why stigma-free care needs to be taught as part of nursing and medical college curriculums. Health personnel need to be regularly trained on providing stigma-free care because we can often forget that stigma has crept into our care. None of this is possible without government leadership. So the government needs to launch multilingual awareness campaigns that bust myths around TB and emphasize how badly stigma affects people. Finally, anti-discrimination legislation that outlaws stigma and discrimination against TB-affected individuals in family, community, workplaces, and healthcare settings is also the need of the hour. We cannot eliminate TB from India without eliminating TB-related stigma. Our silence on TB and its stigma is costing us lives. Come on, India, join us in breaking the silence and in addressing TB-related stigma.